inside the same domain, right? What all those things are and how we are going to talk. Now, as we know that these servers inside the domain will be running inside a private network, right? So, let me just go to So don't you think this ABC domain will be having its separate network and XYZ domain will be having its separate network? What do you guys think? So let's say this is a network of your ABC domain, and this is the network. And what kind of network is this?
It's a secondary.
What kind of network is it? It has to be a private network, correct? Peer network. It has to be a private network, right? Intranet. Where intranet will work? Inside the private network only, right? Okay. So when this ADDC or your domain controller, so for two specific actions we have deployed our ADDS or domain controller to perform authentication first and then authorization and authorize the users for what and all servers or for what and all devices they are having access to, right? To perform these mechanism, this particular mechanism, your domain controller will use a protocol to perform authentication and authorization. And that particular protocol is called Kerberos. Okay, there is a protocol that will be used inside that will be used by domain controller in order to perform authentication and authorization, and that particular protocol is called Kerberos. And this authentication protocol or authorization protocol, Kerberos, best works inside a private network because it is not designed to work in a public network. And when I am saying it is not designed to work in a public network, it cannot work over a public network, over the internet. It can only work inside a private network. Alright guys, there are few more things and few other capabilities. Can you please explain it again? To perform, so why domain controller is there in the place? To perform something called as authorization and authentication and authorization to the users or to the server or the servers to talk to other resources and users, right? Kerberos is a protocol that will be used inside a private network by domain controller to perform authentication and authorization mechanism. Simple. That is what it will do. Alright? Clear, Amu? Sir, it is domain name same as the one we used Which web DNS you were talking about, Balaji? I don't remember actually. Whatever the name that I am using here for a domain, it's just an example which I am using. No, this is like internal DNS what I am discussing. Internal domain name what I am discussing. But you can have an external DNS for this also. So both can be different. Yeah, both can be different. Both can be same. Not a problem. Inside a private network, what domain you are running, it completely depends upon you. But once you are trying to make it public facing, it has to be a verified domain. You have to buy it from a domain registrar. Then only it will work over the internet. Otherwise, it will not work over the internet only. Okay. Yeah. Where was I? Okay, see, this Active Directory domain services will be, let me show you one thing first. Yes, Amol, that is, you are right.
Active Active Directory. Let me just copy it once. I'm just trying to show you how in GUI, if you'll open your Active Directory, users and computers, inside which how it will look like. That is what I'm trying to show you guys here. I think so. This must be clear. Okay. So as we can see that this, once you will log into your this particular server, the one I have created here, any one of these particular computer, inside that you'll be able to see a very structured way of keeping the things inside your Active Directory users and computers. There are a lot of reasons behind that, because there are multiple things that we can perform inside this particular Active Directory, the Active Directory domain services server. All right, so first of all, it will be in a very structured way. So whatever the computers that are part of your domain will be kept inside that, whatever the domain controllers that are part of your domain will be kept inside that, whatever the users and groups that we have created inside our domain will be kept inside this, right? Whatever the service administrators will be there will be kept inside this. In the same way, you have other modules. We call these are not folders, we call these as OUs. So the full form of OUs is organizational unit. Organizational units, we call them as OUs. On these OUs we can apply policies, GPOs, group policies. In the same way, we have heard one policy feature in Azure. What was that? Azure policies, right? Which is pretty much different from GPO, but GPO is the but the concept behind both of them are same. So what we are doing, we are trying to create some rule inside our network by using GPOs. In the same way, we will do we'll apply some rules by using Azure policies inside our subscription, inside our management group, inside our resource group or resources, right? So those things are there. So there is a concept of GPO is there also, group policies, which can directly be applied on OUs, which is this one, right? Just keep all these things in mind. It's not like that you need to remember it. Why I am telling you all these things, because you will be able to see some difference here from here to there, right? Because Azure Active Directory domain services is there from last 30 years or so. So it is very much evolved in the market and also in the features. But your Azure and Azure Active Directory is pretty much new, like in comparison to Active Directory domain services. So you'll be able to find few differences, structural difference also, right? But all those facilities, whatever the things, all those features, whatever the things that we have discussed until now, or whatever the things that we are going to discuss in next 15 minutes or so, you'll be able to see all those features are available, but there is a different way in which they are available. There is a different concept that we need to use. It can be called as we can call it as different name also, right? But concept will be same, only the way to implement it will be different. That is the reason why we need to understand this Active Directory domain services, how exactly it used to work. Then we will be able to actually understand Active Directory, uh, um, um, Azure Active Directory. Okay, I'm not just discussing about Active Directory domain services to kill the time, so I'm just trying to make some understanding before going there. because if I'll start discussing about that, then it will be pretty much difficult for a lot of people to understand why it is here, why that is there. So that is the reason why we are doing that. So that is one thing. Now there is, I'm just going to take one more scenario here. Now in this scenario, what we are doing is like, so in our on premises, it's not like that in on premises only, in Azure only, or the people who are in cloud are going to use SaaS applications. So like, have you guys heard about an application called as Salesforce? There is also an application called ServiceNow, right? So like this, lot of applications are there, like Salesforce, ServiceNow. What are these applications? What are the types of cloud in which these applications comes into the picture? First, tell me that. SaaS, right? Software as a service. Now, Salesforce is a company, right? So it must be having a domain, right? Now, if you want to use Salesforce service, then in that case, I'm just going to keep ServiceNow also, because it will also act in the same way. Now, if you want to use Salesforce services, if you want to use Salesforce services, so it's actually a CRM tool. CRM, customer relationship management, right? It provides customer relationship management tool, and it's also software as a service. So it will be running on the cloud, but it's a company. It will be having a domain. Now if abc.com domain wants to tie up with salesforce.com in order to use its CRM capabilities, in order to use its CRM tool, will Salesforce allow you to create a forest level trust with Salesforce.com? Yes, no, maybe. What do you guys think? They'll laugh at you, right? They will tell, I have hundreds and thousands of customers. If I'll start creating trust relationship with all of them, it will not work, right? Then in that case, there is a solution that we have. We call it as ADFS, Active Directory Federation Services. What it will do, so here inside our network, private network, we'll create a separate subnet, right? This subnet will be only exposed to internet. So inside this particular subnet, we are going to create a server, right? This is a server which will be having a public endpoint. When I'm saying public endpoint, what I mean to say, I mean to say this particular server will be having a public IP address, a public facing IP address, so it can talk over the internet, right? So this is your public IP address, right? And this particular server will be connected to your domain services like this, and this particular server will be having some specific server roles installed. So first one can be Active Directory Federation Services, Active Directory Federation Services, Active Directory Rights Management Services, Active Directory Certificate Services. So these different services can be installed on the server, so that we can make this server act as a federation server. That is what we used to call it as federation server or Active Directory Federation Services. And then at last we'll be able to attach a public IP address, so that this particular server can talk over the internet to applications like SaaS applications, and to create the connectivity, to complete the connectivity. What will happen? So what you administrators from abc.com will do, they will share some secrets with salesforce.com. Okay, so they'll give some details about their abc.com domain. Now what will happen? See, this is how this will happen. So now a user, okay, there is a user who is trying to access salesforce.com, right? So he is using, let's say, alex at the rate abc.com, and it is providing a password, right, like this, and he's trying to access salesforce.com. Now where the url will get redirected, where the request will redirected first, it will get redirected to first salesforce.com, So from here it will go to salesforce.com. It will try to check with all the secrets that it will be having from which particular domain this request is coming. abc.com it is coming. Okay, where we need to perform this authentication, it will understand, okay, this is the public IP address that they have provided, we need to perform the authentication there. Then request will be sent from here to this public IP address. Then what will happen, it will go from this particular server to this particular server. It will check, it will say okay fine, this is a legitimate user. It will come back in the same way. This will go back from here to the salesforce.com, and then salesforce.com will allow this particular person to access salesforce.com and then start using its CRM capability. This is how the complete cycle will work, right? And this is where your ADFS, Active Directory Federation services, will help. Here what is happening, the uh, um, uh, authentication and authorization is happening over the internet by using an public endpoint, right guys? The authentication and authorization is happening over the internet. So let me over internet by using what, it may be using http or https API calls, right? This is how it will be happening. Now there are few protocols that will be using. So as Kerberos was being used where? Kerberos was being used inside your private network. Now this is happening over the public internet. So here there are few protocols that we need to keep in our mind that can be used in order to perform this authentication and authorization mechanism. What is happening here? One second. Protocols will be used, right? These protocols can be OAuth 2.0, SAML. Specifically it will be using SAML. For if you are talking about Salesforce, then it will be using SAML. I'm just telling you what are different protocols that can be used for authentication and authorization purposes. There is something called WS Federation. So these are different internet public network protocols that can be used for authentication and authorization while this kind of activities will be happening. Now until now, whatever the understanding that we have, your Azure Active Directory is what kind of service? It's a PaaS service. And where the authentication and authorization will happen by using Azure Active Directory, it will be happening over the internet. Then what kind of protocols it will be using? It will be using in the backend these protocols, not the Kerberos one, right? Because this is public, this will work in public network. Until now things are clear, whatever the things that I have discussed, guys. Have you guys got an idea about how things works in domain controller, like in Active Directory domain services? At least some idea how it works in on premises? Yes, no, maybe. All right, so let's take a break. Once we are back, we'll continue further. Okay. Now we will only discuss about Azure Active Directory, and then we will understand more things about Azure Active Directory, what all things that we have. Okay. So have some lunch, have some breakfast. Sorry, lunch. Have some breakfast, have some coffee, and then come back. So I'm just going to put 25 minutes timer. After that, after 25 minutes, please come back.